Welcome to Sleepy Wisdom Channel. Tonight we turn toward a philosophy that once promised nothing less than freedom from fear, not through power, not through belief, and not through struggle, but through understanding. In the ancient world where fate, gods, and fortune ruled the human imagination, Epicurus proposed something quietly astonishing: that peace of mind was available here and now to anyone willing to see clearly, that the greatest disturbances of the soul did not come from reality itself, but from false fears, endless desires, and misunderstandings about our place in the universe. Beyond the walls of Athens, in a simple garden, this philosophy took form, not as a doctrine for rulers or heroes, but as a way of life for ordinary people seeking tranquility. It challenged the authority of superstition, questioned the pursuit of honor and wealth, and redefined pleasure as the natural state of a mind at rest. Tonight, we will move slowly through these ideas, through Epicurean views on nature, desire, friendship, death, and the gods. Not to analyze them sharply, but to allow their calming logic to do its work. These teachings were meant to quiet the mind, to dissolve anxieties that had followed humanity for centuries. There is nothing to achieve here, nothing to remember perfectly. These thoughts may simply linger like distant stars, present, steady, and unconcerned with our attention. If you find value in these quiet journeys, you're welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a thought below. It helps others discover this space. For now, let the world recede. Let ambition fall silent. Let the mind loosen its grip and let us begin. What does it mean to live well? This is the question that stands at the heart of Epicurean philosophy. Simple in its phrasing, yet vast in its implications. It is not a question about success or virtue in the abstract, but about the texture of lived experience, about whether a human life can be shaped in such a way that it feels, on balance, worth living. Epicurus began with the observation that most people are not happy. They suffer from anxieties about the future, regrets about the past, fears of death and divine punishment, and a restless dissatisfaction with what they have. Even those who accumulate wealth, power, or fame often find these things insufficient. The question then is whether there exists a way of thinking and living that can deliver something more stable, more genuine, more lasting. The problem of suffering runs through human life like a quiet current. Physical pain visits everyone at some point, but even more pervasive is mental disturbance, the endless churn of worry, comparison, ambition, and disappointment. Ancient Athenians lived in a world of political instability, economic uncertainty, and constant reminders of mortality through war, plague, and the fragility of fortune. The question of how to live well was not an idle intellectual exercise, but an urgent, practical concern. People needed guidance, and they sought it from various philosophical schools that promised peace of mind, resilience, or transcendence. Epicurus noticed something important about human desire. People chase after things they believe will make them happy, wealth and social status and recognition. But these pursuits often generate more anxiety than satisfaction. The anticipation brings hope mixed with fear of failure. The achievement brings momentary relief followed quickly by adaptation and new cravings. The loss or threat of loss brings despair. What appears to be a search for happiness becomes a treadmill of striving that never delivers the promised peace. This pattern suggested to Epicurus that people misunderstand what happiness actually is and where it can be found. Traditional answers to the question of the good life often pointed toward external achievements. Be virtuous and you will be honored. Accumulate wealth and you will be secure. Serve the gods faithfully and you will be rewarded. Pursue knowledge and you will find meaning. Epicurus found all of these answers inadequate because they placed happiness outside the individual's control, dependent on circumstances, other people's judgments, or the favor of unpredictable deities. He wanted something more reliable, something grounded in the nature of human experience itself rather than in the shifting winds of fortune or opinion. Philosophy, for Epicurus, was not an academic discipline, but a form of therapy for the soul. Just as medicine seeks to heal the body, philosophy seeks to heal the mind by removing false beliefs that cause unnecessary suffering. The most important false beliefs concern what we should fear and what we should desire. We fear death, divine punishment, chronic pain, and the disapproval of others. We desire wealth, fame, luxury, and immortality. Epicurus proposed that many of these fears are based on misunderstanding, and many of these desires are unnecessary. If we could see clearly, we might discover that happiness is both simpler and more accessible than we imagine. The central question became, what truly brings happiness? Epicurus offered a surprising answer: pleasure. But this required immediate clarification, because the word pleasure carried then, as it does now, a range of associations, some noble and some base. He did not mean the frenzied pursuit of intense sensation or the indulgence of every passing whim. He meant something closer to contentment, to the absence of pain and disturbance, to a state of stable well-being that could be sustained over time. This kind of pleasure was not a momentary peak, but a plateau, not a rush, but a calm. Fear occupied a special place in Epicurean analysis. Most human misery, Epicurus believed, could be traced to four fundamental fears: the fear of the gods, the fear of death, the fear that pleasure is unattainable, and the fear that pain is unendurable. Each of these fears distorts perception and drives behavior in ways that undermine happiness. The fear of divine punishment makes people anxious and superstitious. The fear of death casts a shadow over every moment of life. The belief that happiness is out of reach breeds resignation or desperate striving. The dread of pain makes people timid and prevents them from living fully. If these fears could be dissolved through clear understanding, the primary obstacles to happiness would be removed. Can pleasure be the highest good without leading to excess? This was the objection Epicurus knew he would face, and he addressed it directly. He distinguished between different types of pleasure and insisted that the philosophical life required discipline and discernment. Some pleasures are intense but brief and followed by pain or craving. Others are modest but stable and sustainable. The wise person chooses the latter. Some desires are natural and necessary, like the desire for food and shelter. Others are natural but unnecessary, like the desire for luxurious food. Still others are neither natural nor necessary, like the desire for fame. The wise person satisfies the first category, occasionally indulges the second in moderation, and ignores the third entirely. Knowledge plays a crucial role in achieving peace of mind. Epicurus believed that many fears arise from ignorance about how the world works. People fear thunder because they think it signals divine anger. They fear death because they imagine continued consciousness and possible torment. They fear that the universe is hostile or indifferent. By understanding the natural world through reason and observation, by learning that thunder is a natural phenomenon, that death is simply the end of sensation, that the universe operates according to natural laws rather than divine whims, people can free themselves from superstitious dread. Philosophy provides this knowledge, and with it comes tranquility. This question mattered urgently in the Hellenistic world. The collapse of the independent city-states and the rise of vast empires created a sense of powerlessness and displacement. Traditional sources of meaning, participation in civic life, connection to ancestral lands, loyalty to small communities were eroded. People felt adrift in a larger, more impersonal world. Philosophical schools arose to offer new sources of identity and guidance. Epicureanism was one response among several, including Stoicism and skepticism, each proposing different answers to the question of how to live well in a world that seemed increasingly uncertain and beyond individual control. The Epicurean answer was distinctive in its focus on pleasure, its materialism, and its encouragement of withdrawal from public life. While Stoics urged active engagement and the cultivation of virtue for its own sake, Epicureans suggested that the examined life could be lived quietly among friends, focused on simple satisfactions and the removal of mental disturbance. This was not passivity, but a deliberate choice about where to direct one's limited time and energy. The question of the good life for Epicurus was answered not by achieving great things, but by learning to want less, fear less, and appreciate more fully the modest goods that are always within reach. Epicurus was born in 341 BCE on the island of Samos, a Greek settlement off the coast of what is now Turkey. His father was a schoolteacher. His mother reportedly practiced minor religious rites, and the family belonged to the Athenian colony established there decades earlier. This background placed Epicurus within the Greek cultural sphere, but at some remove from the center of intellectual life in Athens itself. He grew up during a period of profound transformation in the Greek world, as the traditional city-states were giving way to larger political structures and older certainties were being questioned. The historical context shaped everything about Epicurean philosophy. By the time Epicurus reached adulthood, Alexander the Great had conquered an empire stretching from Greece to India, fundamentally altering the political landscape. The small, self-governing city-states that had defined Greek life for centuries were now absorbed into vast kingdoms ruled by distant monarchs. This shift created a sense of displacement. Citizens who once participated directly in the governance of their communities now found themselves subjects of empires they could neither understand nor influence. The traditional sources of meaning, civic participation, ancestral ties to land, religious rituals embedded in local life, were weakened or lost entirely. Epicurus encountered philosophy early. According to later accounts, he became dissatisfied with his teacher's inability to explain a passage from Hesiod about chaos and the origins of the cosmos. This dissatisfaction led him to philosophy, where he sought clearer and more satisfying explanations. He studied in various places, absorbing different intellectual influences. The atomism of Democritus provided a framework for understanding the physical world as composed of tiny, indivisible particles moving through void. The hedonism of Aristippus, who taught that pleasure was the highest good, offered an ethical starting point, though Epicurus would refine and complicate this view considerably. Around 311 BCE, Epicurus began teaching, first in Mytilene on the island of Lesbos, then in Lampsacus in Asia Minor. He attracted followers and developed his ideas through dialogue and refinement. His letters from this period show someone working through the implications of his core insights, testing them against objections, and building a coherent philosophical system. The community he formed was not just a school, but a circle of friends united by shared values and mutual support. This model of philosophical practice, emphasis on community and friendship as essential to the good life, would remain central to Epicureanism. In 307 or 306 BCE, Epicurus established his school in Athens, the intellectual center of the Greek world. He purchased a house and garden just outside the city walls, and this garden became the physical and symbolic center of the Epicurean movement. Unlike other philosophical schools that met in public spaces like gymnasia or the Stoa, the garden was private, a deliberate withdrawal from the noise and competition of Athenian public life. The garden setting itself carried meaning. Gardens are cultivated spaces, neither wild nature nor urban architecture, places of modest beauty and simple pleasure. They require care and attention, but reward it with steady, renewable satisfactions. The garden was revolutionary in its inclusivity. While other philosophical schools restricted membership to free men of a certain status, Epicurus welcomed women and slaves. This openness shocked many contemporaries and became a source of scandal and criticism, but it followed logically from Epicurean principles. If philosophy is therapy for the soul, if happiness is accessible through right understanding and simple living, then it should be available to anyone capable of reasoning, regardless of social status or gender. The garden became a community of equals united by friendship and shared pursuit of ataraxia, the tranquility that comes from freedom from disturbance. Key followers emerged who would help preserve and transmit Epicurean teachings. Metrodorus of Lampsacus was perhaps Epicurus's closest friend and most important collaborator. He died before Epicurus, and his loss was deeply felt. Hermarchus succeeded Epicurus as head of the school and worked to maintain its coherence and continuity. Polyaenus contributed to the development of Epicurean ethics. These were not just students but partners in philosophical inquiry, people who tested ideas through lived experience and contributed their own insights. The philosophy that emerged was shaped through dialogue within this community. Letter writing became an essential philosophical practice for Epicureans. Epicurus wrote extensively to friends and followers, clarifying doctrines, offering advice, and maintaining the bonds of the community. 3 of these letters survive in full, preserved by the later biographer Diogenes Laertius: the letter to Herodotus on physics, the letter to Pythocles on meteorology and celestial phenomena, and the letter to Menasius on ethics. These letters show philosophy as a living practice, addressed to specific people with specific questions grounded in real relationships. They were meant to be studied, memorized, and returned to regularly as guides for living. The schools spread remarkably quickly throughout the Mediterranean world. Epicurean communities formed in cities across Greece, Asia Minor, Syria, and eventually Italy. These were not isolated individuals, but networks of friends who corresponded, visited one another, and supported each other in living according to Epicurean principles. The movement had a missionary quality, a sense that these insights could transform lives and should be shared widely. Yet it also maintained a certain insularity, a preference for close-knit communities over broad public influence. The survival of Epicureanism depended heavily on these networks and on the texts that circulated within them. Epicurus himself wrote prolifically, reportedly producing 300 scrolls, though almost all are lost. The Principal Doctrines, a collection of 40 key teachings, and the Vatican Sayings, another collection discovered much later, preserved the core insights in memorable, portable form. These maxims were meant to be memorized and repeated, internalized so deeply that they would shape perception and response automatically. Philosophy was not just theoretical knowledge, but a set of practices that reformed the soul. Lucretius, a Roman poet writing in the 1st century BCE, became the most important transmitter of Epicurean thought. His long poem De Rerum Natura, on the nature of things, presented Epicurean physics, ethics, and psychology in elegant Latin verse. Though writing centuries after Epicurus, Lucretius captured the spirit of the philosophy with remarkable fidelity and passion. His work survived the collapse of the Roman world and became, for later ages, the primary source for understanding what Epicurus had taught. Without Lucretius, much of Epicurean philosophy would have been lost entirely. The garden existed for centuries as a living institution. Even as other philosophical schools evolved or fragmented, Epicurean communities maintained remarkable consistency in their core teachings. This stability came partly from the emphasis on memorizing and preserving key doctrines, partly from the strong bonds of friendship that held communities together, and partly from the practical nature of the philosophy itself. People found that it worked, that following Epicurean guidance actually did reduce anxiety and increase contentment. This empirical validation kept the tradition alive. The origins of Epicureanism reveal a philosophy born from both intellectual insight and historical circumstance. It arose in response to a world that felt increasingly unstable and beyond individual control, offering a path to happiness that depended not on external conditions, but on internal understanding and simple, sustainable pleasures. The garden was both a physical space and an idea, a model of how human beings might live together in friendship and tranquility, withdrawn from the turbulence of political ambition and social competition, focused instead on what genuinely matters. That this vision attracted followers across centuries and cultures suggests it touched something fundamental about human needs and possibilities. At the foundation of Epicurean philosophy lies a bold vision of the physical world. Everything that exists is composed of atoms and void. This atomism, inherited from earlier thinkers like Democritus and Leucippus, held that reality could be explained without reference to divine intervention or mystical forces. Atoms are tiny, indivisible particles, too small to be seen, differing from one another in shape, size, and weight. They move through empty space, the void, colliding and combining to form all the objects and beings we encounter. This simple picture explains the diversity and change we observe, without requiring any purpose or design behind it. Materialism follows naturally from atomism. If everything is atoms and void, then there is no immaterial realm, no separate domain of spirits or souls that persist beyond physical dissolution. The soul itself, the principle of life and consciousness, is material, composed of especially fine and mobile atoms distributed throughout the body. When the body dies and its structure disintegrates, the soul atoms disperse and consciousness ends. There is no afterlife, no judgment, no continuation of personal identity beyond death. This view eliminated at a stroke one of the great sources of human anxiety, the fear of what might come after. Epicureans were empiricists who trusted the senses as the foundation of all knowledge. They argued that sensations are always true in themselves, though we may misinterpret them. When you see something in the distance and mistake it for something else, the error lies not in your vision, but in your judgment about what you are seeing. The senses provide reliable information about the world, and reason must build on this sensory foundation rather than trying to transcend it. This grounding in experience gave Epicurean philosophy a practical, observable quality. Truth was not hidden in some transcendent realm, but available through careful attention to the world as it presents itself. One of the fundamental principles inherited from earlier atomists was that nothing comes from nothing, and nothing is destroyed into nothing. Things change form, atoms rearrange themselves into new configurations, but the total amount of matter in the universe remains constant. This principle ruled out creation from nothing by divine will and destruction into absolute nothingness. It made the universe self-sufficient and eternal, requiring no external cause or sustaining power. Birth and death, growth and decay are just rearrangements of pre-existing atoms following natural patterns. The universe, in Epicurean cosmology, is infinite in extent and contains infinite worlds. Our world is one among countless others scattered throughout the void, each with its own sun, planets, and possibly its own forms of life. Some worlds are forming, others flourishing, still others decaying toward dissolution. This cosmic perspective diminished human importance in a way that some found disturbing, but Epicureans found liberating. We are not the center of creation, not the special concern of the gods, but one small manifestation of natural processes playing out across an unimaginably vast universe. The swerve, or clinamen in Latin, represented a crucial modification Epicurus made to earlier atomism. Democritus had imagined atoms falling through the void in parallel paths, but this raised a problem. How do atoms ever collide and combine if they all move in the same direction? Epicurus proposed that atoms occasionally deviate slightly from their path, swerving at random intervals in unpredictable ways. This tiny, spontaneous deviation allows atoms to collide, form compounds, and create the complex structures we observe. More importantly, it introduces an element of genuine randomness into the universe. This swerve preserved free will within an otherwise deterministic framework. If everything happened by strict necessity, if every event was the inevitable result of prior causes stretching back infinitely, then human choice would be an illusion. The swerve broke these chains of necessity just enough to allow for voluntary action. When a person deliberates and chooses, there is a tiny opening for self-determination, a space not fully dictated by prior conditions. This was philosophically contentious, and critics questioned whether such a small random deviation could really ground meaningful freedom. But for Epicureans, it maintained the crucial intuition that we are not simply puppets of fate. The gods exist in the Epicurean worldview, but they play no role in human affairs. They dwell in the spaces between worlds, living in perfect happiness and contemplation, entirely unconcerned with human prayers or behavior. They are made of atoms like everything else, though of an especially refined and immortal kind. The gods are important as models of the blessed life, beings who have achieved complete ataraxia and exist in serene contentment, but they neither created the universe nor intervene in its operations. Natural phenomena have natural causes. Thunder is not divine anger, but the sound of clouds colliding. Earthquakes are not divine punishment, but the result of subterranean forces. This view of the gods removed the fear of divine punishment while allowing for religious feeling. Epicureans could contemplate the gods with admiration and reverence, without the anxiety that comes from believing oneself subject to their capricious judgments. Prayer and ritual could be practiced as meditative acts rather than attempts to manipulate divine favor. This rationalization of religion was deeply offensive to traditionalists who saw it as atheism disguised, but Epicureans insisted they honored the gods more truly by not attributing to them the petty concerns and vengeful behaviors depicted in popular religion. Death, in this materialist framework, is simply the dissolution of the atomic structure that constitutes a living being. When the atoms that make up the body and soul disperse, the capacity for sensation and consciousness ends. There is no continuation of personal identity, no experience of being dead. Epicurus expressed this with elegant simplicity. Death is nothing to us, for when we exist, death is not present. And when death is present, we do not exist. The logic is straightforward. If death is the end of all experience, then there is literally nothing to fear about it. We cannot suffer from being dead because there is no we to suffer. The universe operates according to natural laws rather than purpose or design. Events happen through the collision and combination of atoms following physical necessity and occasional random swerves. There is no cosmic plan, no inherent meaning or direction to the whole. This might seem bleak, but Epicureans saw it differently. If the universe has no purpose imposed from outside, then we are free to create our own purposes. If there is no cosmic justice ensuring that virtue is rewarded and vice punished, then we must build justice through social agreements. If life has no inherent meaning beyond what we give it, then we can focus on what actually matters, reducing suffering and increasing pleasure for ourselves and those we care about. These assumptions work together to remove supernatural fears and ground ethics in nature. By understanding that death is annihilation, that the gods are unconcerned with us, that the universe operates through natural causes, and that we have some degree of freedom within natural constraints. Epicureans aim to clear away the fog of superstition and anxiety that clouds human life. The natural world, properly understood, is not hostile or arbitrary, but comprehensible and navigable. This knowledge forms the foundation for living well, for making clear-headed decisions about what to pursue and what to avoid. The materialist foundations of Epicureanism distinguish it sharply from philosophies grounded in transcendent realms or divine commands. There is no higher reality to which this world is a pale imitation. There are no eternal forms, no world soul, no cosmic intelligence guiding events towards some ultimate good. There is only nature, atoms and void, operating according to patterns that can be observed and understood. This naturalism was radical in the ancient world and remains controversial. It requires accepting that consciousness emerges from material complexity and ends when that complexity dissolves, that value exists only as human experience, and that we are fundamentally alone in a universe indifferent to our hopes and fears. Yet within these constraints, Epicureans found not despair but liberation. If death is nothing, then the fear of it is irrational and can be dissolved. If the gods do not punish, then we need not live in dread of their judgment. If the universe is not purposeful, then we are free to define our own purposes. If everything is atoms, then understanding how atoms behave gives us genuine knowledge. The core assumptions of Epicureanism were meant to be therapeutic, to remove false beliefs that cause unnecessary suffering and replace them with clear understanding that enables tranquility. Philosophy begins with correct understanding of nature. and from this understanding flows a way of life. Pleasure stands at the center of Epicurean ethics as the highest good, the thing for which all other things are done. This was not a casual assertion, but a carefully reasoned position. Epicurus observed that all animals, including humans, naturally seek pleasure and avoid pain from the moment of birth, before any cultural conditioning. This universal behavior suggests that pleasure is the natural end of action, the thing we pursue for its own sake rather than as a means to something else. To live well is to live pleasantly, and everything the philosopher recommends should be understood as guidance toward maximizing pleasure over a lifetime. The word pleasure required immediate clarification because it carried then, as now, a range of meanings. Epicurus distinguished between two fundamental types, kinetic pleasure and katastematic pleasure. Kinetic pleasures are active, the pleasure of satisfying a desire, the sweetness of food when hungry, the relief of drinking when thirsty, the enjoyment of conversation or music. These pleasures involve motion and change, a transition from a state of lack or neutral feeling to one of positive sensation. They are real and valuable, but they are also temporary and dependent on the presence of desire. Katastematic pleasure, by contrast, is the pleasure of a stable condition, the pleasure of not being in pain, not being disturbed, not being anxious. It is the quiet contentment of having eaten enough, of being warm and safe, of sitting peacefully with nothing pressing that demands attention. This form of pleasure does not involve intense sensation, but rather the absence of disturbance. Epicurus considered this the highest form of pleasure because it can be sustained indefinitely, while kinetic pleasures are inherently fleeting. Once you have satisfied hunger, continued eating brings diminishing returns and eventually discomfort. But the state of not being hungry can last for hours in gentle contentment. Ataraxia, often translated as tranquility or imperturbability, names the mental equivalent of physical painlessness. It is the absence of mental disturbance, the calm that comes when fears are dissolved and desires are satisfied or absent. A person in a state of ataraxia experiences no anxiety about the future, no regret about the past, no envy or resentment in the present. The mind is like a still pond, capable of reflecting clearly rather than churned by turbulent emotions. This tranquility is not numbness or indifference, but a positive state of ease and clarity. It is the mental component of the good life. Aponia, the absence of physical pain, completes the picture. Together, ataraxia and aponia constitute complete happiness. When the body is free from pain and the mind is free from disturbance, there is nothing lacking, no way in which pleasure could be increased. Additional pleasures might provide variety or intensity, but they do not make one more fundamentally happy. This was a radical claim that happiness is essentially negative, defined by absence rather than presence, by what is removed rather than what is added. The happy life is not one of constant excitement, but one of sustained peace. Understanding desire becomes crucial in light of this conception of pleasure. Epicurus categorized desires into three types. Natural and necessary desires include those for food, water, shelter, and safety. The things required for survival and basic comfort. These desires are easily satisfied, and their satisfaction brings reliable pleasure without harmful side effects. Natural but unnecessary desires include preferences for particular foods or luxuries that go beyond basic needs. These can be satisfied occasionally without harm, but pursuing them too vigorously leads to disappointment and instability. Vain desires, neither natural nor necessary, include the desire for wealth, fame, power, and immortality. These desires are insatiable, and pursuing them guarantees frustration, because they can never be fully satisfied. The tetrapharmakos, or four-part cure, distilled Epicurean wisdom into four brief maxims. The gods are not to be feared. Death is not to be feared. The good is easy to obtain, the bad is easy to endure. These 4 points address the major sources of human anxiety and assert that each can be dissolved through clear understanding. The gods exist but do not concern themselves with human affairs. Death is the end of sensation and therefore nothing to us. Genuine goods, simple pleasures, and freedom from pain are accessible to nearly everyone. Suffering, when it comes, is either brief or bearable, and rarely both intense and prolonged. Prudence, or practical wisdom, emerges as the highest virtue in Epicurean ethics. Prudence is the ability to calculate which actions will lead to the most pleasure over time, taking into account both immediate and long-term consequences. It requires resisting some immediate pleasures that lead to greater pains, and enduring some immediate pains that lead to greater pleasures. The prudent person chooses plain water over wine if wine will bring a hangover, chooses solitude over exciting company if company will prove draining, chooses honest work over theft, even though theft might seem easier. Prudence is what makes hedonism disciplined rather than impulsive. Friendship occupies a special and somewhat paradoxical place in Epicurean thought. On one hand, friendship is celebrated as one of the greatest sources of pleasure and an essential component of the good life. Epicurus wrote that friendship dances through the world, announcing that we should wake to happiness, that of all the things wisdom provides for complete happiness, far the greatest is friendship. Epicurean communities were bound by deep affection and mutual support. On the other hand, some passages suggest that friendship is chosen for its utility, because friends provide security and pleasure. This tension between instrumental and intrinsic value in friendship troubled both ancient and modern readers. Justice, in the Epicurean view, is not an absolute moral law inscribed in the cosmos, but a social contract created for mutual benefit. People agree not to harm one another because such agreements make everyone safer and happier. Justice exists only in societies where these agreements are made and maintained. There is no injustice in nature, no cosmic wrongness in the strong exploiting the weak, only natural necessity. But humans, being capable of foresight and agreement, can create systems of justice that serve their interests better than constant conflict would. The unjust person lives in fear of detection and punishment, which disturbs tranquility. So even from a purely self-interested perspective, justice is advisable. Withdrawal from public life, captured in the maxim Laeth bioses, live hidden, distinguished Epicureans from other philosophical schools. While Stoics often encouraged political engagement as a duty of the wise person, Epicureans argued that public life brings more disturbance than benefit. Political ambition generates anxiety, competition, and enmity. Public service exposes one to the whims of crowds and the dangers of making enemies. Far better to live quietly among friends, cultivating simple pleasures and avoiding the turbulence of fame and power. This withdrawal was not cowardice, but a strategic choice about how to spend the limited time of a human life. The poverty of unlimited desire becomes clear when we examine what actually satisfies us. Wealth does not bring happiness beyond a certain threshold because it generates new desires faster than it fulfills old ones. The wealthy person worries about protecting and increasing wealth, managing property and maintaining status. Fame brings constant scrutiny and the fear of losing reputation. Power brings responsibility and enemies. None of these things provides the stable, lasting pleasure of a simple meal shared with friends, of a quiet afternoon in the garden, of a body free from pain and a mind free from worry. The Epicurean insight is that we are chasing satisfactions in the wrong places, that genuine happiness is much simpler and cheaper than we imagine. Sufficiency and self-sufficiency emerge as ideals. Sufficiency means recognizing when you have enough, when additional acquisition brings no real benefit. Self-sufficiency means minimizing dependence on external things that are beyond your control. The person who can be happy with little is invulnerable to fortune in a way the person who requires much can never be. This does not mean embracing poverty for its own sake, but rather cultivating the ability to enjoy simple things so deeply that luxuries become optional rather than necessary. When you can be perfectly content with bread and water, then you can enjoy a feast without being enslaved to it, taking it as a pleasant variation rather than a requirement for happiness. These key concepts work together to form a coherent ethical framework. Pleasure is the goal, but properly understood. Pleasure is found in tranquility rather than excitement. Desires must be examined and pruned to focus on those that are natural and necessary. Fears must be dissolved through correct understanding of nature. Friendship provides essential support and joy. Justice makes social life stable and secure. Withdrawal from public ambition protects tranquility. Prudence guides all choices toward lasting rather than fleeting satisfactions. Self-sufficiency and sufficiency provide resilience against the vicissitudes of fortune. The result is a life that is modest in its requirements but rich in contentment, asking little from the world, but receiving much from clear understanding and simple pleasures. Philosophy for the Epicureans was not primarily an intellectual exercise, but medicine for the soul. Just as a physician diagnoses illness and prescribes treatment, the philosopher identifies false beliefs that cause suffering and provides corrective understanding. This therapeutic conception of philosophy shaped how Epicureans approached thinking itself. The goal was not to construct elaborate arguments or explore abstract problems, but to transform how one perceives and responds to the world. Thinking was a practice aimed at achieving and maintaining tranquility, a skill to be developed through repetition and habituation. Memorization of key doctrines formed a central part of Epicurean training. The principal doctrines, 40 brief maxims summarizing essential teachings, were meant to be learned by heart so thoroughly that they became automatic responses to situations. When fear of death arose, the phrase, "Death is nothing to us," would surface immediately. When desire for luxury tempted, the reminder that natural and necessary desires are easily satisfied would check the impulse. This internalization transformed philosophical understanding from abstract knowledge into lived wisdom, from something one knows about into something that shapes perception and action without deliberate effort. Repetition and internalization went beyond mere memorization. Students were encouraged to meditate on key teachings, to turn them over in the mind from different angles, to apply them to various situations until they became second nature. The letter to Monoesius was to be read and reread, each reading revealing new layers of meaning and application. The Vatican sayings provided material for ongoing reflection. This repetitive engagement with core texts resembles spiritual practices in religious traditions. And indeed, Epicureans saw philosophy as offering what religion promised but rarely delivered: genuine peace of mind grounded in clear understanding. Examination of desires became a daily practice. When you feel a desire arise, the Epicurean method is to pause and ask, is this desire natural and necessary, natural but unnecessary, or vain? The natural and necessary should be satisfied simply and directly. The natural but unnecessary might be indulged occasionally if circumstances permit and no harm will result. The vain should be recognized as such and released. This examination prevents the automatic pursuit of every desire and creates space for choice. It transforms desire from something that controls you into something you can observe and decide about. Rational analysis of fears followed a similar pattern. When anxiety arises, ask, what exactly am I afraid of? Is this fear based on reality or imagination? If death, recall that death is the absence of sensation and therefore nothing to be feared. If pain, remember that intense pain is usually brief and prolonged pain is usually moderate. If poverty, remember that natural and necessary needs are few and easily met. If disapproval, remember that the opinion of the foolish is worthless and the wise will judge fairly. Most fears, examined closely, reveal themselves to be either baseless or manageable. The practice of analysis dissolves them. Thought experiments about death and pain helped cultivate the right attitudes. Epicurus himself, suffering from painful illness near the end of his life, wrote letters describing how he maintained happiness by recalling pleasant conversations with friends and by remembering the philosophical insights that had shaped his life. This was not denial of suffering, but a demonstration that mental pleasure can outweigh physical pain when properly cultivated. Thinking about death in advance, contemplating its nature as simple cessation, removes its sting. The wise person has, in a sense, already died philosophically, recognizing that personal extinction is inevitable, and therefore no longer fearing it. Contemplation of past pleasures provided a reservoir of contentment. Memory allows us to re-experience joys even after the original occasion has passed. A pleasant meal shared with friends years ago can be recalled and savored again. A beautiful sunset, a satisfying conversation, a moment of insight. All these remain accessible through memory. The Epicurean cultivates this backward-looking pleasure, not dwelling in the past, but drawing on it as a source of present contentment. This practice also reinforces the value of creating good memories, of living in such a way that you accumulate experiences worth recalling. Gratitude practices, though not always explicitly named as such, appear throughout Epicurean writings. The wise person appreciates simple pleasures that others overlook: the taste of plain food when hungry, the comfort of shade on a hot day, the pleasure of breathing easily, the security of having friends. By directing attention to what is present and positive rather than what is absent and desired, gratitude enhances contentment. It is impossible to feel simultaneously grateful and discontented. The Epicurean method trains attention toward what is available rather than what is lacking. Regular reflection within community reinforced these practices. The garden was not just a place, but a community of practice where members supported one another in living philosophically. Conversations returned regularly to core teachings, not out of repetition for its own sake, but because these truths need constant renewal against the pressure of cultural conditioning and habitual thinking. Discussing philosophical ideas with friends clarifies understanding, reveals new applications, and provides accountability. Philosophy practiced alone is possible, but more difficult than philosophy practiced in community. Letter writing served as philosophical exercise, as evidenced by the extensive correspondence Epicurus maintained with followers. Writing forces clarity. To explain an idea to someone else requires articulating it more precisely than merely thinking about it. Letters also maintained connection across distance, keeping isolated practitioners linked to the larger Epicurean community. The practice of writing philosophical letters became a way of examining one's own understanding, offering guidance to others, and strengthening bonds of friendship. Many of these letters were preserved and studied as philosophical texts in their own right. Questioning cultural assumptions formed an essential part of Epicurean thinking. Society teaches that wealth brings security, that fame is desirable, that honor matters, that death is terrible, that the gods must be appeased. The Epicurean learns to examine these received ideas critically rather than accepting them automatically. Why should I pursue wealth beyond what satisfies natural and necessary desires? Why should the opinion of strangers matter to my happiness? Why should I fear gods who are perfectly content and have no interest in human affairs? This questioning is not mere contrarianism, but a systematic attempt to distinguish genuine goods from false ones. Emphasis on clarity and plainness of speech distinguished Epicurean philosophy from schools that valued rhetorical flourish or deliberately obscure formulations. Epicurus wrote in straightforward Greek, avoiding technical jargon when possible and explaining clearly when it was not. The goal was communication and transformation, not display of cleverness. Complex ideas were broken down into simple components. Abstract principles were illustrated with concrete examples. This accessibility made Epicurean philosophy available to a wider audience than many competing schools reached, though it also earned contempt from those who equated difficulty with profundity. The method of thinking, then, was practical and transformative. It involved training the mind to respond differently to circumstances, to examine desires and fears rather than being controlled by them, to recall and apply key insights in relevant situations, to question cultural assumptions about what matters, to maintain connection with a community of fellow practitioners, and to cultivate attitudes like gratitude and acceptance that support tranquility. This was not philosophy as spectator sport, as the observation and analysis of interesting problems, but philosophy as therapy, as the systematic cultivation of mental health through right understanding and disciplined practice. The Epicurean approach to thinking assumes that most human suffering is unnecessary, caused by false beliefs that can be corrected. Once you understand that death is nothing, that pleasure is easily obtained, that pain is manageable, that the gods are not to be feared, you can live differently. The method provides tools for implementing this understanding. Memorization, reflection, examination, analysis, contemplation, gratitude, community discussion, letter writing. These practices work together to reshape not just what you think, but how you think, creating patterns of perception and response that naturally lead toward tranquility. The mind, properly trained, becomes its own source of contentment. Humans naturally seek pleasure and avoid pain. This is not a moral claim, but an empirical observation about how all sentient beings, including humans, actually behave from the earliest moments of life. An infant reaches toward what feels pleasant and pulls away from what feels painful before any instruction or cultural shaping has occurred. This natural orientation toward pleasure is not a defect or corruption, but simply how we are constituted. Epicurean ethics begins with this fact about human nature, rather than trying to override it with abstract ideals that contradict our basic constitution. This pleasure-seeking is not vice, but nature itself. Other philosophical schools, particularly the Stoics, tended to view emotions and bodily desires with suspicion, seeing them as disturbances to be controlled or transcended. Epicureans took a different approach. Since we are naturally oriented toward pleasure, the question is not how to suppress this orientation, but how to satisfy it wisely. The problem is not that people seek pleasure, but that they seek it in confused and counterproductive ways, pursuing pleasures that lead to greater pains or neglecting stable pleasures in favor of fleeting ones. Philosophy corrects errors in judgment about what is pleasant, not the fundamental drive toward pleasure itself. The capacity for reason distinguishes human pleasure-seeking from that of other animals. A dog eats whatever is available when hungry. A human can deliberate about whether eating this particular food will lead to regret, whether waiting would make the meal more enjoyable, whether sharing it would increase overall pleasure. This rational capacity allows humans to engage in what Epicurus called the hedonic calculus, weighing pleasures against one another and against potential pains, considering immediate versus long-term consequences, choosing wisely among options. Reason serves pleasure, helping us obtain more of it and avoid undermining it through short-sighted choices. Humans are social animals, requiring friendship and community. This is built into our nature as deeply as the drive for food or shelter. Isolation causes suffering, not because we have been taught to value companionship, but because we are constituted in such a way that we need connection with others. The person who lives entirely alone, even if all physical needs are met, suffers a deprivation. Friendship provides not just instrumental benefits like security and assistance, but intrinsic pleasure, the joy of shared experience, of understanding and being understood, of caring for others and being cared for in return. The Epicurean garden was a recognition of this fundamental human sociality. We are naturally equipped with senses that reliably inform us about the world. The eyes see what is there to be seen. The ears hear what sounds. The tongue tastes what touches it. These sensations are always true in themselves, though we may judge incorrectly about what causes them or what they signify. This trust in the senses grounds Epicurean epistemology in experience rather than abstract reasoning. We learn about pleasure and pain, about what satisfies and what disturbs, through direct sensory encounter with the world. The senses are not prison bars separating us from reality, but windows opening onto it, providing the information we need to navigate life successfully. Humans are capable of living simply when properly taught. The confusion and craving that drive much human behavior are not inherent to human nature, but result from false beliefs about what we need to be happy. Remove those false beliefs through philosophical education, and people naturally settle into simpler patterns of living. They discover that plain food satisfies hunger as well as delicacies, that modest shelter provides comfort without the anxiety of maintaining something grander, that a few close friends bring more joy than many acquaintances. The capacity for this simplicity is native to human nature, but must be awakened through understanding. People are prone to false beliefs about what brings happiness. Culture teaches that wealth, status, and power are goods worth pursuing. Observation of how others live suggests that possessing these things brings satisfaction. But these beliefs, though nearly universal, are mistaken. The wealthy are not observably happier than those of modest means. Often they are more anxious. The famous live under constant scrutiny. The powerful bear heavy responsibilities. These false beliefs about the sources of happiness drive people to spend their lives in pursuit of things that cannot deliver what is promised. Philosophy must directly challenge and replace these cultural teachings with truth, based on observation and reason. Humans are subject to unnecessary fears, especially of death and divine punishment. The fear of death is nearly universal, yet entirely irrational, given that death is the absence of experience. We fear something that will never be encountered as such. The fear of divine punishment rests on false beliefs about the nature of the gods, who are blessed and unconcerned with human affairs. These fears poison life, casting shadows over every pleasure and driving people to desperate propitiation or frantic denial. Much human misery could be eliminated simply by removing these two sources of needless anxiety through clear understanding of how things actually are. Despite these confusions and fears, humans are capable of achieving lasting contentment. This is not just theoretical possibility, but demonstrated reality. Epicurus himself claimed to have achieved it, as did his close followers. The method works when properly applied. This optimism about human potential distinguishes Epicurean thought from more pessimistic philosophies that see suffering as ineradicable or happiness as unattainable in this life. Tranquility is within reach, not through extraordinary effort or grace, but through ordinary understanding and simple living. Human nature is not fundamentally corrupt or alienated from happiness, but merely confused. And confusion can be remedied. We are not naturally virtuous or vicious, but shaped by beliefs and habits. An infant has no moral character, neither virtuous nor depraved. Character develops through learning what to value and how to respond to circumstances. This malleability means education matters profoundly. Proper philosophical education can form a character that pursues genuine goods and experiences stable happiness. Improper education or mere absorption of cultural confusion produces a character that chases illusions and suffers unnecessary disturbances. Human nature provides the raw material, but character is formed through what we teach ourselves and one another about how to live. The need for philosophical education to flourish follows from this plasticity. Left to cultural conditioning alone, most people will absorb false beliefs and develop desires that undermine happiness. Philosophy provides corrective education, replacing false beliefs with true ones and redirecting desire towards satisfiable ends. This education is not the transmission of obscure knowledge, but clarification of what can be observed and tested. Anyone capable of observation and reasoning can verify Epicurean teachings through their own experience. The philosophy is not esoteric, but accessible to all who approach it seriously. Mortality stands as the central condition requiring acceptance. Humans, like all compound beings, are temporary configurations of atoms that will eventually disperse. This is not a problem to be solved, but a fact to be accepted. Much human striving aims implicitly at denying mortality, at creating something permanent, at ensuring that one's name or influence persists. Epicureanism offers a different response. Accept mortality fully and find happiness in the time available. The awareness that life is limited can intensify appreciation for present pleasures rather than poisoning them with regret. Knowing that this meal, this conversation, this sunset might be your last, can make you attend to it more fully. The Epicurean view of human nature is fundamentally optimistic despite its stark materialism. We are mortal, material beings without cosmic significance, but we are also capable of pleasure, friendship, understanding, and contentment. We are naturally oriented toward happiness even though we often pursue it confusedly. We can learn and change. We can form communities of mutual support. We can achieve tranquility through correcting false beliefs and living according to nature. Human nature is not something to be transcended or denied, but understood and worked with. The good life is not contrary to nature, but the fullest expression of our natural capacities when guided by clear understanding. Simple living formed the most visible expression of Epicurean philosophy. This meant choosing modest food, the kind that satisfies hunger without elaborate preparation or expense. Bread, vegetables, water, occasionally cheese or a bit of wine, these sufficed for daily meals. The point was not asceticism, but clarity about what actually nourishes and satisfies. Plain food, when you are genuinely hungry, provides real pleasure. Elaborate cuisine, pursued out of habit or status concern rather than need, often brings more anxiety about preparation and presentation than pleasure in consumption. Simplicity in food freed resources and attention for other things. Housing followed the same principle. A dwelling that provides shelter from weather, space for rest and activity, and accommodation for friends is sufficient. Grandeur adds little to actual comfort while adding much in cost, maintenance, and worry about loss or damage. The Epicurean preferred modest quarters that met genuine needs without burdening life with unnecessary complexity. A small house can be as pleasant as a mansion if it serves its function well, and it comes without the servants, upkeep, and display that larger establishments demand. The goal was comfort, not impression, function rather than status. Clothing served practical purposes: warmth, protection, modesty. Beyond these functions, elaboration was unnecessary. Simple, durable clothing that allowed freedom of movement and maintained dignity was all that mattered. Fashion, with its constant demands for novelty and its use as status marker, represented exactly the kind of vain desire that Epicureans counseled ignoring. The energy spent acquiring, maintaining, and worrying about impressive clothing could be better spent cultivating friendship or enjoying nature. Simplicity in dress, like simplicity in food and housing, removed distractions from what genuinely matters. The cultivation of close friendships took precedence over broad social networks. Epicureans understood that friendship requires time, attention, and reciprocal care. It is impossible to maintain genuinely close relationships with many people simultaneously. Better to have a few friends with whom you share deep understanding and regular contact than many acquaintances with whom connection remains superficial. The garden model encouraged small, tight-knit communities where members knew one another well, trusted one another fully, and supported one another consistently. Quality of friendship mattered far more than quantity. Avoidance of politics and public ambition distinguished Epicureans sharply from other philosophical schools. Politics brings competition, enmity, and dependence on public opinion. The politically ambitious person must court favor, manage rivals, and worry constantly about reputation. Victory brings temporary satisfaction, but also new responsibilities and new enemies. Defeat brings shame and possible danger. The entire enterprise generates far more disturbance than pleasure. Epicurus advised withdrawal from this arena entirely, focusing instead on private life where one has more control over circumstances and outcomes. Regular philosophical discussion and study maintained the mental habits necessary for tranquility. This was not optional enrichment, but essential practice, comparable to physical exercise. The mind, like the body, requires regular training to maintain proper functioning. Meeting with friends to discuss philosophical teachings, examining how principles apply to actual situations, reminding one another of core insights. All of this reinforced the understanding that protected against anxiety. Philosophy was not something studied once and then filed away, but a living practice requiring constant renewal. Gratitude for simple pleasures amplified their impact. Rather than taking for granted the daily satisfactions of eating, resting, conversing, and experiencing the natural world, the Epicurean practiced deliberate appreciation. This gratitude did not require believing that anyone had provided these goods as gifts, only recognizing that they were present and valuable. A moment of attention to the pleasure of drinking cool water on a warm day, or sitting in comfortable shade, or hearing a friend's voice. This attention transforms routine satisfaction into conscious joy. Planning to minimize pain when possible demonstrated prudence without eliminating spontaneity. The wise person thinks ahead about likely sources of discomfort and takes reasonable precautions. Dress warmly when cold weather is expected. Set aside resources for times of scarcity. Maintain health through moderation. Avoid relationships likely to become sources of conflict. Choose occupations that are bearable and sustainable. This planning was not anxious striving, but sensible foresight, reducing avoidable suffering without obsessing over every possible contingency. Acceptance of unavoidable suffering prevented additional anguish. Pain will come despite precautions. Illness, injury, loss, and disappointment are part of mortal life. Resistance to unavoidable suffering adds mental distress to physical pain without changing the underlying reality. The Epicurean practiced acceptance, not passive resignation, but clear-eyed acknowledgement of what cannot be changed. When suffering is inevitable, the task is to endure it with as much equanimity as possible, drawing on philosophical understanding and the support of friends, rather than compounding pain with resentment or despair. Choosing companions carefully recognize that other people profoundly influence our mental states. Anxious people spread anxiety. Ambitious people stir ambition. Content people foster contentment. The Epicureans sought friends who shared philosophical understanding and supported tranquil living. This was not snobbery, but self-protection, recognizing that we absorb attitudes and values from those around us. Spending time with people who pursue vain desires or harbor needless fears makes it harder to maintain one's own clarity. Community with like-minded practitioners made the philosophical life easier to sustain. Creating stable, peaceful communities provided the social foundation for individual flourishing. The garden was not just a collection of individuals who happened to study the same philosophy, but a genuine community with shared practices, mutual support, and common purpose. Members helped one another materially when needed, provided emotional support during difficulties, celebrated together, and maintained the collective wisdom through discussion and study. This communal structure acknowledged that humans are social beings who thrive in connection with others, while also recognizing that not all communities support human flourishing equally. Valuing mental pleasures over bodily ones reflected understanding of what is most controllable and sustainable. Bodily pleasure depends on circumstances, the availability of food when hungry, the presence of shelter when cold, the absence of injury and disease. Mental pleasure, the joy of understanding, of memory, of friendship, of contemplation, is more within one's control and less subject to fortune. The person who has cultivated rich mental life can maintain happiness even when bodily circumstances are unfavorable. Epicurus himself demonstrated this, maintaining tranquility and even joy while suffering from painful illness near the end of his life. Living in the present moment prevented the anxiety that comes from excessive focus on past or future. Regret about past mistakes and worry about future troubles rob the present of its pleasure. The Epicurean practiced bringing attention back to what is actually happening now, to present sensations and activities. This did not mean ignoring past lessons or failing to plan reasonably for the future, but rather not dwelling in temporal regions where direct action is impossible. The present is where life happens and where pleasure must be experienced. Attention here, rather than scattered across time, allows fuller engagement with actual experience. Reducing unnecessary desires through understanding freed energy and resources for what matters. Each desire carries maintenance costs. Time spent pursuing satisfaction, worry about whether satisfaction will come, potential for disappointment, adaptation requiring new desires. Eliminating desires that are vain or unnecessary reduces these costs dramatically. The person who has genuinely stopped wanting fame does not spend energy seeking recognition or feeling slighted by its absence. The person who has stopped wanting luxury does not experience simple fare as deprivation. Understanding which desires are truly necessary allowed progressive simplification of life. Finding security through self-sufficiency rather than wealth inverted the usual relationship between resources and safety. The wealthy person feels secure because wealth can purchase whatever is needed, but this security is fragile because wealth can be lost. The self-sufficient person feels secure because needs are minimal and easily met. And this security is more robust because it does not depend on maintaining particular external conditions. The person who can be content with bread and water cannot be impoverished in any meaningful sense, while the person who requires constant luxury is always vulnerable to circumstances that might interrupt supply. These practical implications transformed abstract philosophical principles into a way of life. They required no extraordinary resources, no special circumstances, no unusual talents. Anyone could choose simplicity, cultivate friendship, withdraw from politics, practice gratitude, plan prudently, accept suffering when necessary, select companions carefully, live in the present, and reduce unnecessary desires. The difficulty was not in implementation, but in maintaining commitment against the constant pressure of cultural messages promoting different values. This is why community and regular practice mattered so much. Living according to Epicurean principles required sustained intention and mutual support, but it promised something valuable in return: a life of stable contentment, free from most of the anxieties that plague conventional existence. The Stoics raised fundamental objections to Epicurean ethics from its inception. They argued that pleasure was too unstable a foundation for the good life. Pleasure depends on circumstances that lie beyond our control: the availability of food, the presence of friends, the absence of pain. Since external circumstances change unpredictably, basing happiness on pleasure means making happiness hostage to fortune. The Stoics proposed instead that happiness should be grounded in virtue, which remains within our control regardless of circumstances. The sage can be happy even while being tortured, they claimed, because virtue is unaffected by bodily suffering. Epicureans seem to make happiness too fragile, too dependent on conditions that cannot be guaranteed. Christian critics, who came to dominate intellectual discourse after the decline of paganism, found Epicureanism deeply troubling. They saw it as fundamentally self-centered, concerned only with individual pleasure, and lacking any concept of charity, selfless love, or duty to others. The Epicurean gods, unconcerned with human affairs, offered no model of divine love or source of moral authority. The denial of afterlife removed both the hope of reward for virtue and the fear of punishment for vice. To Christians, this seemed to undermine morality itself, leaving only the calculation of personal advantage. The withdrawal from public life appeared as selfishness dressed in philosophical garb, an abdication of responsibility to the wider community. Political philosophers across traditions criticized the Epicurean withdrawal from civic engagement. In the ancient world, citizenship meant participation in collective self-governance. To refuse this participation was to fail in one's duty to the community that provided security, culture, and material support. Modern political thinkers echo this criticism, arguing that democracy requires engaged citizens and that widespread withdrawal would undermine social cohesion and shared governance. If everyone followed Epicurean advice to live hidden, who would maintain justice, defend against threats, or work for the common good? The charge is that Epicureanism is parasitic, depending on others to maintain the peaceful conditions within which private pleasure-seeking can occur. The question of whether pleasure can truly ground ethics troubled ancient and modern philosophers alike. Even granting that humans naturally seek pleasure, does this natural fact carry normative weight? Should we pursue what we naturally desire, or does ethics require transcending natural inclination? The Epicurean move from "we do seek pleasure" to "we should seek pleasure" seemed to many philosophers an invalid inference. Moreover, if different people find pleasure in different things, including in acts that harm others, does Epicureanism provide any basis for condemning such behavior beyond prudential calculation? The worry is that pleasure-based ethics lacks the resources to generate substantive moral constraints. Epicurean atomism, while naturalistically satisfying, seemed to many critics to drain meaning from the universe. If everything is just atoms moving through void according to mechanical necessity and occasional random swerves, what grounds value? Why should one arrangement of atoms be preferable to another? The universe becomes a cosmic accident, devoid of purpose or significance. Human life, consciousness, and moral striving are just ephemeral patterns in atomic motion. Many found this picture deeply unsatisfying, even nihilistic. They wanted to believe that the universe itself embodied meaning or purpose, that human existence connected to something transcendent rather than being merely a temporary configuration of matter. The charge of pig philosophy dogged Epicureanism from the beginning. Critics claimed that making pleasure the highest good reduced human life to animal level, no different from a pig wallowing in mud. The accusation suggested that Epicureans promoted base sensuality and self-indulgence, rather than the cultivation of distinctively human excellences like reason, courage, or justice. Epicureans responded that their conception of pleasure was subtle and refined, emphasizing mental over bodily pleasures and advocating moderation rather than excess. But the label stuck, partly because the nuances of Epicurean hedonism were easier to miss than the bold claim that pleasure is the highest good. Distinguishing natural from cultural desires proved more difficult than Epicurean theory acknowledged. Is the desire for beautiful music natural or cultural? What about the desire for understanding, for creative expression, for recognition by one's peers? Epicureans might classify these as natural but unnecessary, but one could argue they reflect deep human capacities and satisfying them contributes significantly to flourishing. The trichotomy of desires, while useful as a heuristic, oversimplifies the complexity of human motivation. Many desires fall ambiguously between categories. and reasonable people might classify the same desire differently. Maintaining ataraxia in difficult circumstances remained a practical challenge. Epicurean philosophy promised that tranquility was achievable through right understanding, but experience suggested this was easier said than done. Chronic pain, repeated misfortune, the loss of loved ones, these things disturb the mind despite philosophical preparation. Epicurus's own stoic acceptance of painful illness at life's end was admirable, but also exceptional. Most people, even with philosophical training, struggle to maintain equanimity through severe or prolonged suffering. This raised the question of whether Epicurean philosophy promised more than it could deliver for ordinary practitioners facing ordinary human difficulties. The limited appeal to those seeking grand purpose or transcendence meant Epicureanism never became a universal worldview. Many people want to believe their lives participate in something larger than individual existence, that their choices matter cosmically, that death is not absolute extinction. Epicureanism offered nothing to satisfy these desires. It asked people to accept that they are temporary, insignificant in the cosmic scheme, and that death ends all. For those who could accept this, it offered a path to peace. For those who could not or would not accept it, no amount of philosophical argument sufficed. The philosophy was genuinely helpful to some, but left others cold. The question of whether friendship was instrumentalized troubled even sympathetic readers. Epicurus wrote both that friendship is chosen for its utility and that it is valuable in itself. These claims seem in tension. If I befriend you because friendship benefits me, am I really your friend or just using you? If genuine friendship requires valuing the other person for their own sake rather than for what they provide, then basing friendship on utility undermines it. Epicureans might respond that the dichotomy is false, that genuine affection and enlightened self-interest can coincide, but the tension remains. The question is whether Epicurean friendship is truly reciprocal or subtly self-centered. The tension between withdrawal and human social nature created internal difficulties. Epicureans recognized that humans are social animals requiring community and friendship, yet they also counseled withdrawal from the broader social and political life of the city. This raises questions about the scope and limits of human sociality. If we need community, why only small communities of fellow philosophers? What about the wider bonds of citizenship, ethnic identity, or shared humanity? The Epicurean answer privileged intense personal relationships over broader social connections, but one might argue this leaves important human capacities and needs unfulfilled. Modern critics sometimes view Epicureanism as passive or escapist. In a world with pressing social problems, systematic injustices, and collective challenges like environmental degradation, the advice to live quietly among friends can seem like opting out. If those with education, resources, and capability withdraw from public engagement, who will work for necessary changes? The charge is that Epicureanism promotes a kind of garden wall indifference to suffering that does not touch one directly. While personally understandable, this posture may be morally insufficient when collective action could reduce widespread suffering. The question of civic duty and social responsibility remains perhaps the most challenging criticism. Even granting that politics often disturbs tranquility, does this justify complete withdrawal? One might argue that privileged individuals have obligations to contribute to collective welfare, especially when they benefit from social institutions maintained by others' engagement. The peace and security within which the Epicurean garden flourished depended on political and military activity that other people undertook? Is it fair to enjoy these benefits while refusing to contribute? This criticism does not invalidate Epicureanism, but highlights a real tension between the pursuit of individual tranquility and participation in collective life. Despite these criticisms, Epicureanism has shown remarkable resilience as a philosophical position. Each criticism can be met with responses, qualifications, or acknowledgements of genuine limitations. No philosophy satisfies all demands or appeals to all temperaments. Epicureanism offered something specific, a naturalistic, this worldly path to happiness based on understanding nature, moderating desire, and cultivating simple pleasures and friendship. For those who found traditional religion unsatisfying, political life disturbing, and Stoic severity too demanding, Epicureanism provided an alternative. Its limits are real, but so are its genuine insights about human happiness, the sources of anxiety, and the possibility of contentment through simple living. The rise of Christianity brought Epicureanism near extinction. As Christianity became the dominant worldview across the Roman Empire and then medieval Europe, it actively suppressed competing philosophies, particularly those that denied divine providence, afterlife, and cosmic justice. Epicureanism, with its materialist cosmology and its gods who cared nothing for human affairs, represented everything Christianity opposed. Church authorities condemned Epicurean teachings as atheistic and immoral. Libraries that might have preserved Epicurean texts were controlled by religious institutions with no interest in maintaining this heritage. Of Epicurus's 300 scrolls and the extensive writings of his followers, almost everything was lost. The preservation of Epicurean thought depended heavily on a single work, Lucretius's De Rerum Natura. This long philosophical poem, written in the 1st century BCE, presented Epicurean physics, psychology, and ethics in polished Latin verse. It survived the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, copied by medieval scribes who valued its literary qualities even while rejecting its philosophy. The poem remained known throughout the Middle Ages, though more as a literary curiosity than as living philosophy. Without Lucretius, later ages would have had only fragmentary and often hostile accounts of what Epicurus actually taught. The Renaissance brought rediscovery and renewed interest. In 1417, a manuscript hunter named Poggio Bracciolini found a copy of Lucretius's poem in a German monastery. Its reintroduction to humanist circles in Italy sparked fascination. Here was a fully developed ancient philosophy that presented an alternative to both Christianity and Aristotelian scholasticism. Renaissance thinkers, eager to recover the wisdom of antiquity and increasingly willing to question religious orthodoxy, found in Epicureanism resources for thinking about nature, ethics, and human happiness outside theological frameworks. The poem circulated widely and was studied with new seriousness. Enlightenment thinkers embraced Epicurean materialism as part of the broader project of naturalizing knowledge. If the universe operates according to natural laws, discoverable through reason and observation rather than divine will, then Epicurean atomism provided a framework for understanding. Thinkers like Pierre Gassendi worked to rehabilitate Epicurus's reputation, distinguishing his actual teachings from the caricatures that had dominated for centuries. The mechanical philosophy of the 17th century, which explained natural phenomena through the motion and collision of particles, owed significant debt to Epicurean atomism, even when modified by new discoveries. The influence on modern utilitarianism is clear and acknowledged. Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill developed ethical theories based on maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. a project that consciously drew on Epicurean foundations while modifying them significantly. Mill distinguished higher and lower pleasures, echoing Epicurus's distinction between mental and bodily pleasures. Utilitarianism extended the hedonistic calculus from individual decision-making to social policy, asking how laws and institutions might increase aggregate happiness. While different from Epicureanism in scope and emphasis, utilitarianism shares the core commitment to pleasure as the foundation of value. Thomas Jefferson included Epicurus among his philosophical heroes. Letters reveal that Jefferson considered himself an Epicurean, understanding this to mean someone who believes happiness is the proper aim of life, and that it is found through reason, virtue, and moderation rather than religious belief or political ambition. Echoes of Epicurean thought appear in American founding documents, particularly the emphasis on the pursuit of happiness as an inalienable right and the suspicion of government power as threatening to peaceful life. While the connection should not be overstated, Epicurean themes resonated with Enlightenment political thinking about individual liberty and limited government. Contemporary philosophy has seen significant revival of Epicurean ideas. Philosophers interested in naturalistic ethics, in grounding morality without appealing to transcendent sources, find Epicureanism a useful precedent. The question of how to live well within a naturalistic worldview, accepting that we are material beings in a purposeless universe, has renewed urgency in an increasingly secular age. Epicurean answers to this question, emphasizing simple pleasures, friendship, and tranquility, offer resources for contemporary thought about happiness and meaning that go beyond religious frameworks or purely abstract ethical systems. The relevance to secular ethics is perhaps Epicureanism's most important contemporary legacy. As traditional religious worldviews lose their hold in many parts of the world, people search for alternative foundations for morality and meaning. Epicureanism provides one such foundation, grounded in human nature and experience rather than divine command or cosmic purpose. It suggests that ethical guidance can be naturalistic without being nihilistic, that accepting mortality and purposelessness does not prevent meaningful engagement with life, and that happiness is possible without belief in anything transcendent. Contributions to scientific worldview include not just ancient atomism, but the broader commitment to natural explanation. Epicureans insisted that all phenomena, including apparently miraculous ones, have natural causes discoverable through observation and reason. This methodological naturalism became foundational to modern science. While specific Epicurean theories about atoms and their behavior were superseded by modern physics and chemistry, the fundamental approach of seeking natural explanations rather than invoking supernatural agencies became central to scientific practice. The Epicurean attitude toward nature influenced how science developed. The influence on therapeutic approaches to philosophy appears in the contemporary revival of philosophy as practical guidance rather than merely academic discipline. Cognitive behavioral therapy, for instance, shares with Epicureanism the view that suffering often results from false beliefs and that modifying those beliefs can reduce suffering. The emphasis on examining thoughts rather than being controlled by them, on distinguishing rational from irrational fears, on cultivating gratitude and acceptance. These therapeutic techniques echo ancient Epicurean practices. Philosophy as therapy for the soul, Epicurus's original conception, finds new expression in various contemporary contexts. Modern interest in minimalism and simple living often unknowingly recapitulates Epicurean themes. The recognition that consumer culture generates insatiable desires and that happiness might be found through radical simplification rather than acquisition echoes ancient Epicurean wisdom. Movements promoting voluntary simplicity, sustainable living, and freedom from consumer culture arrive independently at insights that Epicureans articulated millennia ago. The realization that we are pursuing satisfaction in the wrong places, that genuine contentment comes from simple pleasures and meaningful relationships rather than accumulation, is recognizably Epicurean. Continuing debates about pleasure and happiness keep Epicurean questions alive. What is the relationship between pleasure and meaning? Can a life be meaningful if it is merely pleasant? Does happiness require something beyond the satisfaction of desires and absence of pain? Contemporary happiness research in psychology explores questions that Epicurus addressed philosophically, often arriving at findings that support Epicurean claims. Studies showing that beyond a certain threshold, increased wealth does not increase happiness, that strong relationships matter more than material possessions, that gratitude and mindfulness practices enhance well-being. All of this empirical work validates aspects of ancient Epicurean wisdom. Psychological research has validated some Epicurean claims, while complicating others. The hedonic treadmill, the tendency to adapt to positive changes and return to a baseline level of happiness, supports Epicurean suspicion of pursuing ever greater pleasures. Research on fear of death shows that it does indeed cause significant anxiety for many people, and that philosophical or psychological work to accept mortality can reduce this anxiety. Studies of desire suggest that learning to want less, rather than striving to obtain more, is indeed a viable path to contentment. At the same time, psychological research reveals complexity in human motivation and happiness that Epicurean theory only partially captured. The scholarly recovery of Epicurean texts continues to reveal new dimensions of the philosophy. The Herculaneum papyri, carbonized scrolls buried by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, contain extensive Epicurean writings that are slowly being deciphered using new technologies. These texts provide direct access to how Epicureans discussed philosophy in their own words rather than through the filters of critics or later summaries. Each new fragment recovered adds to our understanding, revealing nuances and complications in Epicurean thought that earlier reconstructions missed. Epicureanism's survival as a living philosophy, not merely historical curiosity, depends on whether its core insights remain relevant. The questions it addressed: how to achieve happiness, how to deal with fear and desire, what role friendship plays in a good life, how to face mortality, remain as pressing now as in antiquity. The answers it offered, grounded in naturalism, emphasizing simplicity and contentment over striving and acquisition, focused on present experience rather than distant goals. These answers continue to resonate. Not everyone will find them satisfying, but enough people do that. Epicureanism remains a vital option in the landscape of life philosophies. The legacy is not just historical influence on later thinkers, but continuing presence as a philosophical option. One can still, in the 21st century, adopt Epicurean principles and live by them. Communities of practice exist, though rarely under that name, that embody Epicurean values. The philosophy has proven adaptable to different cultural contexts, while maintaining its core identity. Its legacy is both what it contributed to the development of Western thought and what it continues to offer as practical guidance for living. In this dual sense, Epicureanism remains alive, influencing how we think about happiness, meaning, and the good life. The fundamental insight returns like a quiet refrain: happiness comes through understanding. not through extraordinary achievement or divine favor or cosmic alignment, but through clear perception of what we need, what we fear, and how to satisfy the first while dissolving the second. This simplicity is what made Epicureanism both accessible and challenging. Accessible because it requires no special talents or circumstances. Challenging because it asks us to see through cultural conditioning and question what everyone around us takes for granted. The path is clear once pointed out, but walking it requires sustained attention against constant distraction. The gentleness of the Epicurean path distinguishes it from more demanding philosophies. It does not require heroic virtue, ascetic self-denial, or the mastery of complex doctrines. It asks only that you examine your desires honestly, consider your fears rationally, live simply among friends, and appreciate the modest goods that are always available. This gentleness should not be mistaken for weakness or complacency. To live according to nature, to be content with enough, to withdraw from competition and striving, these require a different kind of strength than ambition demands. It is the strength to resist cultural messages about what matters, to choose tranquility over excitement, to be satisfied when more is offered. Epicureanism is not dogma, but invitation. It does not demand belief in untestable propositions or submission to authority. It invites you to observe your own experience, to test its claims against your life, and to adopt what proves helpful. If simple food does not satisfy you, if friendship does not bring more joy than fame, if contemplating mortality does not reduce your fear of death, then the philosophy has not proven itself to you. But if, upon honest examination, you find that its insights match your experience, that following its guidance does reduce anxiety and increase contentment, then you have reason to continue. The invitation is to experiment, to see for yourself whether this way of living delivers what it promises. The possibility of contentment without extraordinary means is perhaps the most hopeful element of Epicurean teaching. You do not need to be brilliant, beautiful, talented, wealthy, or powerful to be happy. You do not need perfect health, ideal circumstances, or freedom from all difficulty. You need enough to satisfy natural and necessary desires, which is surprisingly little. You need friends who understand and support you. You need to grasp certain truths about death, desire, and the nature of things. You need to practice examining your thoughts and redirecting your attention. These things are within reach of most people most of the time. Happiness is not reserved for the exceptional, but available to anyone willing to live according to nature. Philosophy, as ongoing practice rather than destination, means there is no moment of completion, no final arrival at perfect wisdom. Each day brings new circumstances requiring fresh application of understanding. Desires arise that must be examined. Fears surface that must be addressed. The mind drifts toward disturbance and must be gently recalled to tranquility. This ongoing quality is not a flaw in the system, but recognition of how human consciousness works. We are not mechanisms that, once properly adjusted, run forever without attention. We are living processes that require continuous care. The Epicurean life is a practice, like playing music or tending a garden, that must be maintained through regular engagement. The role of community in sustaining wisdom cannot be overstated. Isolated individuals, even with perfect understanding, struggle against the constant pressure of surrounding culture. Friends who share philosophical commitment provide mutual support and reminder. When you begin to drift back toward conventional ambitions or unnecessary anxieties, friends notice and gently redirect. When you maintain tranquility through difficulty, you model possibility for others. The community holds the teaching alive through practice and transmission. This is why Epicurus established the garden and why Epicurean communities persisted for centuries. Wisdom is not just individual achievement, but collective practice. Acceptance of limits proves liberating rather than constraining. Mortality, the ultimate limit, shapes everything once truly accepted. If life is finite, then how you spend it matters completely. Each moment is unrepeatable, each relationship temporal, each pleasure precious because it will not last forever. This awareness does not poison enjoyment, but intensifies it. The sunset is more beautiful knowing you have limited sunsets remaining. The conversation with a friend means more when you recognize that the number of such conversations is finite. Acceptance of mortality does not make life meaningless, but makes each moment meaningful precisely because it is limited. Simple pleasures prove sufficient when rightly understood. The problem has never been that simple things cannot satisfy, but that we do not attend to them properly. Bread tastes good when you are hungry and eat mindfully. Water refreshes when you are thirsty and drink with awareness. Conversation delights when you listen attentively. Sunlight warms pleasantly when you notice it. The sufficiency is there in the experience, waiting to be recognized. What culture teaches us is that simple things are inadequate, that we should want more, better, different. Epicureanism teaches the opposite, that adequate satisfaction is always near, in the next meal, the next rest, the next conversation with a friend. Peace comes through clear thinking about desire and fear. Most disturbance arises from confusion, from wanting what will not satisfy, or fearing what will not harm. The philosophical task is clarification, removing the fog of false belief so that reality becomes visible. When you see clearly that death is nothing to fear, that the gods are not to be feared, that pain is endurable, that simple pleasures satisfy, then the major sources of anxiety dissolve. What remains are manageable challenges that can be addressed through prudence and planning. The mind, cleared of unnecessary turbulence, settles into its natural tranquility like water becoming still once the wind stops. The garden stands as image of human possibility, a cultivated space, neither wilderness nor city, where friends gather to pursue wisdom and enjoy simple pleasures together. A place withdrawn from the noise and competition of public life, but not isolated from human warmth and connection. A community based on understanding rather than birth or wealth, open to anyone capable of philosophy regardless of status. The garden represents what humans can create when they organize life around genuine goods rather than conventional ambitions. It is small-scale, particular, achievable, a model that can be recreated anywhere people commit to living according to Epicurean principles. Living well within natural bounds means accepting our constitution and circumstances rather than constantly striving against them. We are mortal animals with certain needs and capacities. We require food, shelter, and companionship. We are capable of pleasure, reason, and friendship. We will die. These are the bounds. Within them, enormous variation is possible, countless ways to arrange a life, infinite particular pleasures to enjoy. But the bounds themselves do not change, and fighting against them generates suffering without accomplishing anything. The wise person accepts the frame and creates beauty within it rather than exhausting themselves trying to transcend limits that cannot be transcended. The quiet wisdom of choosing less reveals itself slowly. At first, choosing less seems like deprivation, like settling for inadequacy. Cultural conditioning runs deep, insisting that more is better, that wanting is natural and good. But as you practice wanting less and notice what happens, the wisdom emerges. Less acquisition means less maintenance. Fewer possessions mean greater freedom. Simpler tastes mean easier satisfaction. Modest ambitions mean less anxiety. The person who has learned to want less has not diminished their life, but concentrated it, focusing on what genuinely matters and releasing what does not. This choosing less is not scarcity but abundance, not poverty but wealth rightly understood. The Epicurean path does not promise perfection or the elimination of all difficulty. Life remains uncertain. Pain still comes. Relationships end. Plans fail. What changes is your relationship to these inevitable events. With philosophical understanding, you suffer less from them because you add less mental disturbance to unavoidable circumstances. You maintain more peace through turbulence because your happiness is not hostage to fortune. You find more satisfaction in ordinary moments because you have learned to attend to them. The transformation is subtle but profound, not a change in external circumstances but in how you inhabit them. This is the resolution Epicureanism offers, not transcendence but acceptance, not heroism but moderation, not cosmic significance but human connection, not immortality but appreciation of finite time. It resolves the question of how to live well by suggesting we already know the answer instinctively, but have been taught to doubt it. Happiness is here, in simple things simply enjoyed, in friendship and understanding, in the absence of pain and disturbance. The philosophy points back to what was always available, but overlooked in the search for something grander or more complicated. The wise life is the examined life, but the examination reveals that wisdom has been nearby all along, waiting in the garden. As this quiet walk through Epicurean thought comes to its end, you might imagine the garden again, resting at the edge of evening. The air cools, footsteps soften, voices grow fewer, then disappear altogether, until only the sense of shared calm remains. There is no need to carry the ideas with you now. The distinctions, the arguments, the careful observations can loosen and fade. Whatever mattered will remain without effort, and whatever doesn't can pass gently out of reach. Some impressions may linger in the background, not as thoughts to follow, but as a feeling, like the memory of warm light after sunset, or the ease of sitting among friends with nothing left to say. They don't need attention. They know where to settle. If these quiet journeys have been comforting, you're welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a thought behind, so others may find their way here as well. And thank you for listening. But for now, let the thinking slow. Let the garden grow still. Let the day close itself without ceremony. Sleep well and good night.